In the news tonight, Central Division to go into lockdown. 4 new cases of COVID-19. And non-essential businesses to close.
From the studios of FBC Suva, Ateda Lendua.
Good evening, Fiji. A major decision from the Health Ministry today to lock down the Central Division, beginning from Wainandoi and ending in Longani Village, Tailevu. Authorities are hoping this will help curb any further spread of COVID-19. For more, we join Josiah Nanunga live.
Atela, the containment zone being implemented following the Health Ministry, after the Health Ministry confirmed 3 more cases of COVID-19. Now, given that these individuals already out in some communities before being quarantined, the ministry says a lockdown is critical. So for the next 14 days, Fijians, or for those who are living in Lami, Suva and Osori, must remain indoors.
Thank you very much, Josiah. The Ministry of Health has announced containment zones for Lami, Suva and Nosori, which will be in effect for the next 14 days. Permanent Secretary for Health, Dr. James Fong, says from 4 a.m. tomorrow, those living in the containment zones will not be allowed in or out. Dr. Fong says this is being done to ensure people don't move unnecessarily. Kritika Kumar reports.
The 3 new containment zones stretch from Wainandoi to Longani Village in Tailevu.
It begins from Wainandoi to Tamavoiwai, and that will be the Lami area that we'll rename. Then from Tamavoiwai to 8 Miles Bridge, which will be what we call the Suva Containment Zone, and 8 Miles Bridge to Longani Village on the Kings Road, which is what we're going to call the Nosori Containment Zone.
The Permanent Secretary says anyone who is found loitering in public in any of the containment zones will be arrested by police, and people will only be allowed for essential purposes.
In this instance, this lockdown will be mandated. You've asked me a few times whether we can mandate this and mandate that. This one definitely mandate.
Nandi and Lautoka will also be divided into 2 zones. The Nandi zone begins from Momi Junction to Lomolomo Police Post, and the Lautoka zone will be from Lomolomo Police Post to Nadilau. There will be limited movement for necessary purposes. Kritika Kumar, FBC News.
A COVID-19 case from Mokoi in Nasinu is a cause for concern for the Ministry of Health. The woman is one of 4 new cases confirmed for Fiji, but authorities are unsure how she was infected. 2 other cases were recorded in Nandi, 1 in Lotoka. Lena Reese reports.
The Ministry of Health is conducting contact tracing to determine who the woman from Mokoi may have been in contact with before she was infected.
She has been placed in quarantine, but prudence requires us to treat this case as a possible community transmission. And as our investigation goes forward, we may find the source point, and this may or may not represent a new cluster.
The remaining 3 cases were all at the funeral in Tavukumbu, which authorities say is a super spreader. The Ministry of Health is tracking the movements and contacts of the new cases 5 days before they went into quarantine.
3 of the cases involved persons who attended the funeral that we have identified as a super spreader event, including a husband and a wife who circulated through the community.
The ministry will now work within the containment areas to continue contact tracing to contain the spread of the virus.
We want you to keep still so we can do our contact tracing and the interventions in the community. The other reason is because if there are cases out there that we don't know about and we don't find, we know that when people move, the virus moves. So if everyone just keeps still for a period of time, we can actually stop the virus in its tracks.
There are now 10 locally transmitted cases in Fiji. Lena Reese, FBC News.
All non-essential businesses in the Central Division containment zone will be closed for 14 days. Supermarkets, shops selling food and other items will remain open so people can buy essential items within their respective containment zones. Those who can't attend work can receive a one-off relief payment from the Fiji National Provident Fund. Apinisa Wangarantovu reports.
Fijians have been urged to refrain from bulk and panic buying.
Please do not run up to the supermarkets and start bulk buying things this afternoon or this evening. Doing so will only crowd those stores, and will put every shopper at risk. So what we're getting at is that we are going to allow some degree of movement during that lockdown phase, just so that you can access some of your essentials.
Dr. Fong says there will be limited banking services as well as available FNPF and FRCS services.
The list will include electricity services, emergency services, fire services, health and hospital services, lighthouse services, meteorological services, mine pumping, private security services, and roading services. If your business is not in this list, close it down.
Civil servants in confinement areas can work from home given they make arrangements with their respective permanent secretaries. The government will also re-implement the Ministry of Agriculture Marketing Authority arrangement to get food and fresh produce into containment zones. Apeniso Ngrandobu, FBC News.
The Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission is working with authorities to ensure there are reasonable exceptions during the times of restricted movement. Director Ashwin Raj says authorities must ensure that COVID-19 related restrictions do not have a disproportionate and discriminatory effect on the public. Raj says there must be reasonable exceptions for food, health care, transportation during medical emergencies, shelter, particularly in the context of domestic violence, and other basic necessities. He says the Commission is working closely with the Fiji police force in ensuring households and individuals have access to basic food and other essential items during lockdowns and other COVID-19 related restrictions. Raj stresses that all public health advice must be taken seriously and adhered to.
As I said, extremely difficult times. Human rights is increasingly under strain. And so we want to make sure that, all of these restrictions are, put in their proper context. And where reasonable exceptions need to be made, they should be made. But at the same time, if the public acts in an irresponsible manner, then it sets a very, very dangerous precedent for everybody else.
Coming up, export volumes grow and making the best of a tough situation. The volume of agro-exports last year increased significantly as there was more cargo space available on board flights. Permanent Secretary Ritesh Das says total volume went up to 16.3% and more than 1,800 tons when compared to 2019. Fiji Airways had earlier highlighted that there are up to 10 freight flights a week. Kritika Kumar reports.
According to the ministry, increasing the volume of export has led to a decrease in the cost of exporting fresh produce.
All of a sudden, all the space available on the planes for cargo, we have been able to achieve a growth in our exports, both in value and volume, which is a positive trend.
The ministry has achieved a growth in the value and the volume of the export.
And if we continue on this trajectory, we should be able to see double-digit growth in our exports, both volume and value, this year and in subsequent years.
Agriculture Minister Dr. Mahendra Reddy says the exports have not been impacted by the pandemic.
We are very pleased with the support from police and security forces with regard to transfer of produce and it being getting loaded and for export purpose. So at the moment, export is not affected.
The ministry has also confirmed that the crop and livestock export has increased over the last 7 years. Kritika Kumar, FBC News.
A group of youth in Wainitarawau settlement in Cunningham are making the most of the expanded and screening zone. Since entry and exit is forbidden, the youth have been selling cassava to homes inside the lockdown area. Apinisa Wangairandova reports it's a win-win with families having a source of food and farmers earning an income.
Botui Kolindisi says they farm for their family but those in the containment area have asked for support.
This is the first time we're selling cassava. We usually just farm for our family.
The group attends the same church with those in the containment area, and this was also a way of helping out.
Church members are inside the containment area, so they pay us and the money goes back to our families.
The group says while they sort out masks, they are trying to stay out of the area as much as possible.
We are just going with what we have right now. We'll try to get some proper masks, but scarf and clothes are all we can go with for now.
Military personnel and health officials continued screening the whole of Cunningham today. The portion of Wainitarwau area where 3 local cases of COVID-19 were tested remains on lockdown for at least the next 11 days. Apenisong Kardobu, FBC News.
The COVID-19 pandemic has been a blessing in disguise for St. John's College in Ovalau. Principal Mariana Kitolele says the attitude of students towards their studies and the teachers' commitment have changed drastically. Chasai Nanunga has more.
The school recorded an excellent pass rate last year when compared to 2019.
In 2019, we had only 46% pass for Form 6, and our Form 7 was about 27% or 29%. It was very low. Last year we had 85% pass rate for Form 6 and 97% Form 7.
The Wadi has encountered severe natural hazards, particularly Tropical Cyclone Winston in 2016, but they've rebuilt in time to ensure classes are not affected.
Mostly it's the distance from the mainland, like when we want to purchase our stationery and things like that. And we exposed here to natural disasters.
We always weigh sports and studies as some students are passionate about various sporting activities, and we have produced some really good students who have pursued their studies further in tertiary institutions.
The school is renowned for accommodating a large number of students from neighboring islands. However, the number dropped this year due to border closures. Chosaya Nanunga, FBC News.
Political party leaders are calling on their members and the public to strictly adhere to COVID-19 safety guidelines in light of the recent developments announced by the Ministry of Health. The Health Ministry says there are now 6 locally transmitted cases of COVID-19 that can be traced back to the soldier who caught the virus while working in the border quarantine facility. Lina Reese reports.
SODELPA party leader William Ngavoka says Fiji has been through this and the only way to fight against COVID-19 is strict adherence to guidelines.
Asking everyone to cooperate with the authorities, with the regulations in place, to observe it. We need to get out of this, and it takes a community to work together to make it happen.
While commending Fiji's frontline workers and their sacrifice, Unity Fiji party leader Savinathan Narumbe says a united front is needed to fight the virus.
Let's just work together. That's my message. We come together. We know what we have. We know what limited resources that our government has. But let's work with it.
In a statement, the National Federation Party is calling on people to take the current situation seriously and to work together to keep people safe. Fiji currently has a total of 20 active COVID-19 cases in hospital isolation units, of which 14 are border quarantine cases and 6 locally transmitted cases. Lina Reese, FBC News.
Not everyone takes up the career they were first inspired to, but somewhere along the way, the love for whatever career chooses us is developed. This is true for the head teacher of Nakawika Primary School who wanted to be a nurse, but has no regrets in becoming a teacher. In tonight's success story, Apinisa Wangai Randovu shares the 22-year teaching career of Luce Kadilala.
Born and bred in Canberra in the Lau group, Lucia Kadilala says growing up, opportunities were limited.
I attended Naikalanga Village School from year 1 right to year 8. The first time I came to Suva was the time when I came to be informed. From that time, I started attending, I went to Ballantyne Memorial School.
When Kadilala got to Suva, she lacked proper English, but she was persistent and eventually became fluent.
Oh, it was quite hard, difficult. Especially, I was worried about speaking in English. I tried my best. I read a lot of books, especially when I like reading. I love reading. So I always take books out from our library to read, and it helps me a lot.
Kadilala's drive was quickly picked up by her teachers, and this was when her career started to shape up, with her joining the Lautoka Teachers College after high school.
Actually, when I did not want to become a teacher, I wanted to become a nurse. But when I went to secondary school, one of my teachers there motivated me to become a teacher because I used to take part a lot in oratory contest. When we had programs in school, they used to select me to speak to the children, and one of my teachers told me, Luce, from my point of view, I think you will become a good teacher.
From that time, did you ever regret, choosing this career?
No. I love being with children, and this will be my 22nd year of being a teacher.
Kadilala has one key piece of advice she always imparts to students.
Work hard, listen to the advice from their parents, and always think of the hardships and the difficulties that our parents go through, especially in trying to provide them with their needs, learning needs. So the children have to think of their parents a lot.
The Lao woman taught in Vanuatu for 12 years before moving back to Vitilevu and is now stationed in the interior of Namosi. She says the success of her students is what makes her career worth the time. Apeniso Ngerndovu, FBC News.
Coming up, Fiji rugby development plans for women in place. And cricket Fiji to rely locally. This and more coming up. Fiji Rugby Union will see a big growth in women's rugby in the next few years, following rumours that some women players had been switching to rugby league. Fiji Rugby Chief Executive says it is not a loss for the union. He says the priority is always the people who stay loyal to the sport.
The women's game in rugby will be huge in the next few years. We have the World Cup in 2021, 2022. We have the Global Women's Competition in 2023. That competition means 7 test matches for the Fijiana every year.
Local warm-up games are the only option for the national cricket team as they prepare for the East Asia Pacific qualifiers in Japan in August. Due to the pandemic, the team will not be able to travel abroad to train. They will only have to rely on Cricket Fiji weekly competitions. Benina Rakautonga reports.
There is no other choice for the national cricket team than to train locally.
We'll have to invite local team which play in Suva and Nandi so that they can have a game with this squad that we have been to.
Cricket Fiji Acting Chief Executive Sitiveni Rokoro says they will invest a lot in this young team.
Youth, talented and skillful athletes that's been picked for this squad.
National coach Shoeli Mateawa says local warm-up games also has its advantages.
So this is one way as well to get our cricketers involved during the Cricket Cup Association Challenge.
30 cricketers have been chosen to be part of the extended squad. Eliminations will be in July. Venina Rakautonga, FBC Sports.
Cloudy periods with a few showers was experienced over the eastern and interior parts of Viti Levu, Vano Levu, and Lau and the Lomai Viti groups. Elsewhere, afternoon showers and thunderstorms was experienced. In the west, there were showers today with a chance of more later today. Eastwards from Pacific Harbour to Suva, periods of rain, and the evening may bring some thunderstorms. Up north, no major change from the rest of Fiji. At sea, easterly winds 15 to 20 knots, moderate to rough seas, moderate southerly swells. High tide is at 5:14 a.m. tomorrow and low tide at 11:10 a.m. Sunrise is at 6:22. Outlook for tomorrow, cloudy periods with afternoon or evening showers and isolated thunderstorms. Outlook for Tuesday, occasional showers and a few thunderstorms. Recapping our main stories, containment zone from Wenendoi to Longani village from tomorrow, 4 new cases of COVID-19 and only essential services to run in containment zones. For these stories and others, you can tune in daily to our sister radio station Gold FM. To our poll question, this week we're asking, have you downloaded the Care Fiji app? Visit our FBC website to answer. And you can send us newsworthy pictures and videos by email fbcnews@fbc.com.fj or share it with us via Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. You can also download our FBC app to keep updated with the very latest news and sports and listen to our 6 radio stations live. That's your news for tonight. Good night.